So, welcome to another fabulous episode of My Orgasmic Life. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Gaia Morrissette. And today's show is all about recapping the last 7 days. So, if you are like, what? You had a 7-day non-sexual pleasure challenge and I wasn't aware of it. You can go find it on Facebook. You can find the 7 days of me doing video for it. Okay. So before we get into our recap and before we go into slutty xmas, woohoo! I just want to do a couple housekeeping things. So one, there will be no podcast show next week as I will be in the midst of practicing my slutty xmas practice. And part of slutty xmas practice is that I probably will be tied up somewhere. So I will not be able to get to a camera or a microphone. So you will have to wait until the first week of January for me to do a recap and give you all the juicy details around slutty xmas, okay? So that's number one. Number two, don't forget to become a Patreon member to support me in supporting you guys. So for as little as $5 a month, you get to have all sorts of access to bonus content that only my Patreon people get to have, as well as you get to support all the beautiful, awesome things that I do in the world for you guys, okay? So you can find all of that information, join my Patreon, watch episodes that listen to episodes, watch episodes, on Facebook and get caught up on My Orgasmic Life shows. You can get all of that access through my website. GaiaMorrissette.com is the gateway to all things Gaia Morrissette. Okay, so the last 7 days, I have been doing this beautiful practice of upping my game around my pleasure-seeking skills. And so it's a part of slutty xmas practice. So there's like a bunch of different pieces to slutty xmas. So the first stage of slutty xmas is go get the slutty xmas tree. These are the traditions of slutty xmas. So the first one is go get the tree, which I did a couple weeks ago. Then the second piece is go get slutty nails done, which I did. So I have now on my nails, for everybody who can see, it says slutty triple xmas. And then on my rest of my nails, they are black with white subtle lines of women's body parts. So I got like side boobs and bums and vaginas. So that's my, slutty nails. The third phase of slutty xmas is the 7-day non-sexual pleasure challenge, which is what we've just completed. Today is the last day. And so I wanted to do a recap for you guys. So here are and to get all the juicy details, please come watch all the 7 days that I did lives about on Facebook. And you can find me and follow me under Gaia Morrissette. So here's the recap. Over those 7 days, so actually a little bit about pleasure. Let's just talk about pleasure. So there are different levels of pleasure. There's sensory pleasure, emotional pleasure, orgasmic pleasure, which leads to sexual pleasure. And the emotional pleasure and the sensory pleasure, and even, a little bit on the orgasmic pleasure can be non-sexual pleasure. And that I just wanted to give you, to understanding. So sensory pleasure is your 5 senses. It's about dropping into your body and being in your body. Your sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. Your emotional pleasure is all the things that you emotionally feel. So happiness, joy, excitement, ecstatic, ecstasy, bliss. These are your emotional pleasure possibilities. which are strongly attached and are connected to our mindsets and our belief systems. Okay. Then we have orgasmic pleasure. So orgasmic pleasure is the byproduct of having enough sensory pleasure and enough emotional pleasure with permission to take it to the next level, which allows an orgasmic release to happen in your body, which can be both genital and non-genital orgasmic release, which is the area in which we spend a lot of time when we want to have sexual pleasure, where we're doing sexual activities to stimulate the pleasure responses that we're having, both sensory and emotional pleasure. Okay, so those are the different worlds, the pleasure worlds. And what I was doing for the last 7 days is getting myself ready and primed for slutty xmas, where I then spend the next 7 days exploring new sexual activities and sexual possibilities. And in order for me to get ready to have those experiences, I needed to prime myself so that I'm not going from 0 to 100 in like 3 seconds. So every year I do 7 days of pleasure, non-sexual pleasure, to kind of heighten my, I'm already halfway to my arousal state all the time. And so when I drop into slutty xmas, then I'm incredibly orgasmic, and when I drop into sexual pleasure possibilities, I'm incredibly responsive and orgasmic. So that's the premise of why I do this and the purpose of it. Now, over the last 7 days, because I've done this many times, I've had to like dive much deeper than I normally would dive in non-sexual pleasure, because I kind of do non-sexual pleasure all the time. I'm, kind of in that sense, that first layer of sensory and emotional pleasure, because I'm a pleasure seeker. So this was my opportunity to like push and exercise and strengthen my skill sets in this department. So I went deep. I went deeper than my normal sort of like, oh, that feels nice. Oh, I have a little moment and I can drop into it. Oh, pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. A little pleasure fairy here and a little pleasure fairy there. I was like, okay, I got to drop deep into it. I also typically choose this time of year because it also is the opportunity to test out and push my layers and my levels when there's a holiday season, because we got a lot of exterior stuff going on in the world around the holiday season. So it's also another great opportunity for me to like exercise my pleasure seeking ninja mastery skills. So here are some of the pieces that I want to kind of give you, the highlights of. So the first thing that I noticed this time around in this year for 2021, I'm already into the next year. I'm so done with this year, is my heightened senses and awareness. Now, I would normally say I'm pretty intuitive and aware and those kind of things, but I had this really cool experience. This week I had some pretty cool experiences where I was like, wow, like my senses are like superhero senses, like crazy superhero level. So one night I was sleeping. So I was falling asleep and I was in my bed and I'm like all cozy and it's feeling all nice. And I've like fallen asleep and I smell wood burning. And I'm like, wood burning as from like a fire, like a fireplace or a wood stove. And I was like, and I'm like half asleep. And so I'm like, and it's one of my favorite smells in the world. And so I'm just like, oh, this is so wonderful and cozy. And then all of a sudden, like, I realized, wait, I don't actually have a fireplace or a wood stove. So smelling fire is not good. Maybe the house is on fire. So I wake up and I go and I check the house and I realize the house isn't on fire. But my nose, my senses are so alive and so awakened that I was smelling somebody else's fire through their chimney that kind of, with a little bit of a draft that was in my room, came through. So somebody else's fire in their house went into the air, came out through the air, came through a little draft in my house for me to pick up, to think that I actually had like I could smell it as if it was in my house. That's kind of epic. That's fucking, I'm not even kind of epic. I'm going to swear, it's fucking epic. So that was just one of like the realization of how heightened my senses have become in being a pleasure seeker. So that's very exciting. The second thing that I had a lot of opportunities to really lean into and challenge myself this week was changing my emotional state. So I have kind of been, not really, it's not kind of, truly, I've been in a state for a while now of chaos and crisis and stress. I've been a big ball of stress for months and months and months and months and months. And I've done lots of work and course corrected, and you can learn all about why my life was a mess, how it's messy in last episode. But anyway, so I've been in this state for a while. And part of being in that state for a while, what that does is it pulls me into some old patterns from places of being addicted to crisis, of being addicted to drama, the adrenaline junkie in me, like it pulls in the old patterns of when I was younger, which were survival tactics. But I am not in survival mode, so I don't need to use those tools anymore. Thanks. I love you too, guys. So what happened was, in this, like, having to constantly seek non-sexual pleasure, it gave me these beautiful opportunities to course correct, to interrupt the old patterns, the old crisis patterns, drama patterns, stress patterns, pain patterns, all of the things. So I had to, first part of that was to do the emotional state change. You can't drop into pleasure, whether it's sexual or non-sexual pleasure, if you are not in the right headspace. So number one piece of this is being in the right headspace. So I'm like, okay, let's start using my tools. I have this huge, beautiful repertoire of incredible tools that it's an opportunity for me to use. So I start in with like leaning into my body and doing dancing and singing. So I'm like dancing and singing to, get through, administrative stuff, and dancing and I'm singing to, change my state, change from stress of out in the world when I'm shopping. And while I'm in the, the shopping center, I am now dancing and singing while I'm in the shopping center. And, and I'm like, okay, so that's working. So that, I was using those tools, and then I'm like dropping in and doing some Kegels. And so I'm like, okay, so how do I drop into being more into my body and grounded? And choosing happiness and choosing pleasure, even when I'm in this state where I don't want to be in a state of pleasure for many different reasons, whether it's external stressors or internal choices of stressors that are going on with me, physically, emotionally, psychologically. And so it was really beautiful. It was like this incredibly beautiful, amazing space that was wonderful, because it started to remind me that I can choose this, and I am empowered to make the choices that I want to make. And pleasure seeking, advanced pleasure seeking, ninja mastery pleasure seeking skills are where it's at for me. So that was really beautiful. That was like one of the great insights that I had this week. The second insight, or another insight I wanted to share, a recap that was very cool around like ninja mastery of sensory and non-sexual pleasure possibilities, was my heated car seat. So I walked outside one day, this week, and I'm like, oh my God, it's winter, it's cold, it's snowy, it's like, ugh. And while I was in this whole state, again, not in a pleasure zen happy, I'm like unfolding perfect, everything's unfolding perfectly state. I was in the space. I really was freezing because I'm like a lizard. I'm cold-blooded. So whatever external temperature is what internally happens. I've never been able to temperature regulate ever since I was a kid. So I get into my car after I've swept off the car, and I get into the car and I turn on my heated seats, and it's like, ooh, my butt's getting warm, my back's getting warm, my body, the back of my legs are getting warm. And so it's like this really interesting sensations that are happening. It's like warm and cozy, half of me, and freezing the other half of me. And so I asked myself, well, this is the week to push our comfort zones, to push our limits, to, see what we're capable of, to expand our capabilities. So what if we can see if we can move this warmth through the rest of our bodies, if we allow it to happen? Because that's what pleasure and sensory pleasure and orgasmic pleasure is all about. It's all about the surrendering, the releasing, and the unfolding and allowing. So as I was driving, I just was like, okay, let's allow that warmth of the seat to move now, not just from the back side of me, but into me, and then through me, move that warmth through my body. And then all of a sudden I could feel like my hands starting to get warm, and my arms were warm, and my front of my legs were warm, and my feet were starting to get warm. I'm like, oh my God, this is so fucking awesome. This is crazy. So that was very cool. That was a cool insight. And then the last one that I want to kind of recap for you is food. So if you followed or listened to any of my episodes around this last year, I have been rebuilding my digestive tract, as I have celiac and irritable bowel, and like basically from this part all the way to the other hole, one hole to the other, has been chaos and crisis and drama and pain and discomfort and unhealthiness and not functioning and all that kind of stuff my whole life. And so this year I was like, okay, we need to fix this, and we need to fix this radically. Otherwise I'm going to end up having to have surgery and stuff that I don't want to have, and, feeding tubes and all sorts of crap. So I'm like, okay, how do we do this? So I, call up my Chinese medicine dude and my health team, and I say, okay, how do we heal this? Like, not just put Band-Aid on it, but how do we heal this? And so the first thing was I needed to radically change my eating and take out everything from my diet and eliminate everything, and see what my body's reacting to, what my body isn't reacting to, what my body, craves and desires and is in its best interest and will help to nurture my body versus doing harm to my body. And so it's been a year of cauliflower, blueberries, sometimes yams, which is kind of exciting, and lots and lots and lots of ethical beef. 3 times a day, and duck fat. And that's been my diet, period. Oh, and I get to have, this really decadent chocolate and some almonds every once in a while. So in this place of denial, needless to say, food has not been my friend. And in that, a big part of pleasure and a big part of how we connect and how we bond with each other is over food. And so that was a piece that I realized in this year's because usually I would drop into my food pleasure and as on a daily basis of this like taste and smells and textures and food is so powerful as a way to drop in and you engage all of your senses at once. And so when I was starting that process this, season, and I realized I hate food. I feel depressed. I'm sad. I'm angry. I hate everybody that gets to eat. I like all these feelings I have about food. And I was like, wow, here is the most amazing possibility this week is what if I can go outside of my zone of, and awkwardly and reclaim food, not reclaim food because I get to eat new food, but reclaim the mundane every day, 365 days of the year. How many times do I have to eat cauliflower? How many times can I make cauliflower my friend? Like, what if I can reclaim that? And so I did. I'm very excited to share with you that the last 3 days of my non-sexual pleasure challenge has been around embracing, reframing, and awakening my relationship with the food that I get to eat, that gets to nurture my body, that can be incredibly tasty, that I get to have a relationship in a new way with, instead of hating its guts, which is what I will be honest is how I have felt for most of this year. Instead of hating it, what if I could embrace it, accept it, and love it? Kind of sounds like a relationship with people, right? I've also done that this year too with people. So yeah. So this morning, I had the best breakfast I've had in a year. I've had the same breakfast, but this was the best one I've had all year because I wanted it and was excited to have it and enjoyed it and leaned into it in a new way. And what my breakfast was this morning, as it is every morning, which I am excited to get to have, is a hunk of frozen duck fat and a bison meat stick with a bunch of supplements. And those beautiful supplements help to nurture my body and get me all the nutrients and all the things that my body needs so that I can be healthy and my digestion can be healthy. And I can be strong and I can be fit, which allows me to have more pleasure, which allows me to have more orgasms, which allows me to have more crazy sex. So that's the gateway, those supplements. The fat, the beautiful duck fat allows me to get my body the energy that it needs to function. And the protein, which is delicious, also helps everything to function. And the combination of all those things allow my digestion to digest it and to heal it and absorb all the nutrients in it. So it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. If 4 days ago, I was actually crying about how much I hate my life around food. And now I'm like, yay, I had the best breakfast this morning. So shit can turn around when you choose to make it turn around. Okay. So my biggest takeaway, and I hope your biggest takeaway from my share, is that pleasure is the foundation. This is what I've realized, is that pleasure is the missing piece. The advanced pleasure seeking on a daily basis has been the missing piece of puzzle of my life. And it's the gateway, the foundation. It's how I can change my state change. It's how I can help to create a place of ease and zen, which is what my body needs to be healthy. And it also helps with having more pleasure and more joy and more celebration and more orgasms. And then you also get to see all these new possibilities that you didn't even know existed, that you're missing in the day. These great, joyful, pleasurable moments, which then opens up the possibility for from non-sexual pleasure to sexual pleasure and orgasmic pleasure. So I have made a commitment. I'm making a commitment that this is my new, not just 7 days every year, but this is going to be my new way of being. I'm going to move my pleasure-seeking daily commitment to advanced pleasure-seeking daily commitment, and really focus on how important it is for all of these other things that I want and create in my life, not to mention that I support and create for my clients. The second thing that I want to share, which I'm very excited about that came out of this, is that I realized that in all the courses and all the programs and all the things I do in the world, I don't have a self-study course about making pleasure your friend. And so this 7 days have inspired me to understand how I knew it was important, but I didn't, it's like almost like this beautiful epiphany light bulb went off this week. And that I realized that this is the foundation. Everything I teach, everything that I am, everything that I help my clients heal, all comes from this basic construct of making pleasure your friend, both non-sexual and sexual and emotional and sensory and orgasmic pleasure. And without that foundation, everything else is a challenge. So I'm going to, in the new year, I'm going to create this beautiful new making pleasure your friend self-study program, self-study course, whatever you want to call it, self-study course. And yeah, so if you want in on that and you want to be on the pre-launching pricing and the logistics of all of that, then please send me a message. You can email me at gaia@succulentliving.com. You can PM me if you follow me on social media. And you can go to my website and contact me through there. So again, my website is GaiaMorrissette.com. All things, it's a gateway to all things Gaia. And I'm going to go now. Oh, actually, before I go, I have a special second part of if you're like, oh, you know what, this pleasure thing is very exciting for me and I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait till New Year. I need it now. I need it now. For my Patreon people, for as little as $5 a month, I'm going to create the first 3 important tools to start making pleasure your friend. All right, I'm going to go do that right now, actually. So if you want in on that, then join my Patreon, and you can find my Patreon link in the show notes. You can find my Patreon link on my website at GaiaMorrissette.com. You can find my Patreon everywhere. Okay, so all right, that's it. That's all. And I will see you and you will hear me in the new year after I go practice slutty xmas. I got 7 new sexual things I've never experienced to explore. Actually, I only have 6 because I did one yesterday. All right. See you in the next show. Bye-bye.